I've already lied to you, right? I haven't been making games for 10 years, but I've been making them for 9 years and 9 months. So my game development journey actually starts 10 years ago. I was working a little office job, and one day I was sitting at my desk typing away, and I get called to go into my boss's office. And it wasn't to have sex with him or anything, but I did get told, "We don't need you anymore," which felt a bit shite. I kind of decided I need to get my shit together and I need to find out if there's something in life that I enjoy that I can pursue. So I was looking through college courses one day and I came across game development, and I had been a game fan, World of Warcraft, Football Manager in particular, all my life. I didn't really care how games were made. I hadn't thought about it, to be honest. But something stuck out about this college course. I was really interested in learning game development, so I applied and I got in, and this is how my game development journey started. So this journey starts, like a lot of journeys might, with Space Invaders. I made Space Invaders. I had to make a game from scratch, plan it and develop it and everything, and this is done in Game Maker. So Game Maker is where I started, followed some tutorials. Then we were told, make any game you want, that's part of your project. And this is the game that I came up with, and it is mega basic. And there's a wee bit at the start. On the menu, you can see that I've been adding DLC since the very start of my game development journey. Can you believe that? So I wanted to make an endless mode for this game where it would just continuously spawn enemies for you to destroy. And I didn't know how to do it. So I went to my lecturer in college at the time and I said, how can I make a mode that just continuously spawns enemies for you to kill? And he said, oh, it's easy, just use a loop. Easy. And I'm like, oh, I didn't want to sound like an idiot or stupid or like I didn't know what I was talking about. So I just went, oh, yeah, a loop. Okay. I had no idea what he was talking about. So I went back. Another week spent trying to figure it out. Couldn't get it to work. Broke loads of shit in my room. That's how shit I used to be at making games. Not saying I'm any good now, but aye. So I thought I'll just stick DLC, £842. If you want to pay me £842, then I'm sure I'll figure it out at that point. So this was the first game I ever made, like outstanding graphics and gameplay. To be honest, it wasn't too bad for a first project, I suppose. But the real funny bit was we had to come up with marketing material and design merchandise and everything. So I came up with this, whatever it is, like a collection of the sprites, and scaled up, they just look dreadful. I mean, you can even get a t-shirt. I definitely wouldn't be seen wearing this, and it's even got a different logo from the game. I mean, that's something, isn't it? I wouldn't wear this though. So that was the first project that I made, and this one was called Shepherd. So the idea was that you had a wee goat and you had like a pen at the end, and you would have to clear out the blocks. You only had a certain amount of clicks that you could use up, and then once you were happy with the route for the goat, you would press spacebar and the goat would start jumping like mad to get to the pen. See, if I'm honest, I don't have a clue how I came up with the idea for this one. I must have been on something, do you know what I mean? But there it is. Okay, back for my second year of uni now, and we get put into teams this time, so I had to work as a team, and I was paired with one of my good friends, still great friends to this day actually. Shout out to Darren Pax if he's watching. And we had to come up with a game. So the two of us were both mad on Football Manager. So we knew it had to be like a management game of some kind. So we were drafting up different ideas like Gladiator Manager, Boxing Manager, or Innkeeper. And Innkeeper sounded really interesting. I don't think there was a game out there back in 2015 where you were an innkeeper. So we came up with that idea at the time. I came up with this wee concept piece that the game would possibly look like, and this was the first character concept that I drew, and it looks like absolute shite, to be honest. RimWorld had just come out in early access on itch.io, and I was mad on it, and I just wanted to recreate that art style between that and Prison Architect, and that was the kind of, the overall style of what I was going for with this Innkeeper game. And sadly, I don't have any footage of the actual game getting played, and I don't have the executable for the game, but here's some sprites, and I mean, that is like fucking top quality stuff, by the way. That's some good shit. These are meant to be dwarf characters. Now, there's actually a collection of some of the sprites, and that's dated the 18th of April 2016. My stupid head's hiding that. But this was 2016, and this was actually the first game that I developed in Unity. This was my first sort of a project that I used to explore learning Unity, and it was like just a mash of code that I found online, following tutorials, going through Stack Overflow, pinching bits of code from different places and sort of like stuffing it all together. And I have got no doubt that if I found the code for it now, it would be absolute shit and I would hate looking at it. But this was a screenshot from in the game, and the idea was that you would get your wee fantasy characters would spawn down at the door, and then they would either come in and they would go sit down, or they would go and get a drink, and you had to make sure you had enough staff working at the bar to be able to serve them all to take more money. And there wasn't really any end goal of the game, but it was just to show off our clear art expertise, but also programming knowledge as well. So college, completed it, mate. Then I went off to uni, and I know for the American audience, might sound a wee bit strange. I don't know how it works in America, but over here, you go to college, typically, then you go to uni after. So I went to uni, and I delved more into building games using Unity in uni. And I also fancied myself as a little bit of a pixel artist. And these are some of the wonderful pieces that I came up with while learning pixel art. You can see a chalice here for holding who knows what. Lovely little flower blowing in the wind on a lovely blue sky. Then this wee character, I've got an upscaled version. This wee character, whatever he's meant to be. And here's another little character here as well. Absolute cracker. And then some balls and shapes and stuff. I was actually contacted by a very well-known game developer after coming up with this piece here. And I was offered a role as a pixel artist starting at over £100,000. But I said no. I wanted to explore my options, and that's a total lie. Don't listen to me. I'm talking shit. But when I was at university, I had lots of different projects that I had to come up with. So this was for a class all about procedural generation. And this was basically, it wasn't a game, but it was a project in Unity where I used like Perla noise and all that good shit to procedurally generate maps and then populate them with like fantasy empires and shit like that. So that was Perla noise and, what do you call it, like waterfall flood technique or some shit. I don't remember. And then I had this little football manager game that I was working on outside of uni at the time as well, and this went on for quite a while, combining my two favourite games of all time, World of Warcraft and Football Manager, into the one. And that idea got me really excited, but I just lacked the knowledge and skill set at the time to make it happen. But I did come up with this little demo. And this was a little game for a game jam. So one of my friends, he's also a game developer, and he turned around to me and he said, "Do you want to do a game jam with me?" And all I could think is, am I an idiot for not knowing what a game jam is? Hadn't heard of them. So we got together, we did this game jam. It was Ludum Dare or Ludum Dare, whatever you want to call it. I was basically the programmer on it. He came up with the artwork. I built this using the Photon engine, so it's actually networking multiplayer, not local multiplayer, which was totally overkill. But I was learning that for one of the projects I had in a uni class at the time, and it's a wee bit jittery and all over the place, you'll see here. But it was good fun, a great game jam, and it was my first ever game jam. So this was another game that I started building outside of uni classes. And this was basically like Smash Brothers, but you had to open this chest that was on the level to win. I just thought it made it a little bit more interesting. This was a really early build of that game, and I did expand upon it a little bit so that it had these wee graphics here. And this was me, as you can tell, me testing it by myself, and I've got two controllers, and I'm trying to play with both of them at the same time. I'm trying to play with myself, essentially, and I thought I was really good at that. Apparently I'm not good at playing with myself. So, yeah. That's actually, out of all the game projects that I've dropped over the years, because you might see a bit of a theme now where I'm like making small shitty demos as opposed to finishing game projects. Out of all the ideas though, this is probably the one that I would like to revisit one day, to be honest. And then this was another little demo that I made, and this was again generating random worlds. This was using hexagon tiles in a 3D project this time. I think I was mad into Endless Legend at the time, and I really loved the style of Endless Legend. You see I put a wee day-night cycle in here as well. I totally forgot about that. And it looked nice, but I didn't have an idea for a game at the end of it. And we're now coming up for the end of my uni, so this will be now in 2019, and I had to come up with a game that used JavaScript only, so I had to go out my comfort zone, which was now Unity. I had been using it for 3 years at this point. I had to go into using just JavaScript, so this was the game that I came up with here. It's basically Angry Birds, and this was for a university class. I was really happy with this because I had to build like the particle effects all by myself. Like I couldn't just rely on Unity systems. I had to do the collision detection by myself, the physics and all that jazz as well. Had to also do that and come up with the sprites. And then we come to the point where I've now graduated from university. I'm trying to get a software job, and it's a tough market. And I've got this just this void where I still want to make games, and when I'm not making games, I just feel like something's not quite right. So I started making this game called Space Station Rogue, and it was basically a roguelike / extraction game. They're known as extraction games now, kind of like your Left 4 Dead and shit like that, where you need to get to an end point and collect different things. So that was the goal with this one, and basically it allowed me to teach myself how to procedurally generate levels again, and also start embarking on like building an RPG out with different abilities and different gear and things like that. And then this project, I would eventually ditch it because I did get a software job which would eat up all of my time, and I kind of left the game development world, to be honest. I was sitting on the train for 3 hours every day, going back and forward from work. That leads us to a game called Winterbringers, which I started developing, which I'll leave a link to. Where are we going? Somewhere there. Somewhere like round there. And you can check that out. That was my most in-depth game project to date. Totally unrealistic expectations, and that was my own fault. That video basically goes over all the mistakes I made there. So you can check that out if you want to. And eventually, after the Winterbringers project, I again fell out of love with making games, and I just stopped doing it. But again, that wound would heal, and I would start to feel that calling to make games again. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where we just want to make games. You just get into that zone where maybe you're enjoying a game or you're enjoying a movie, and you just feel that creative urge coming to you where you're like, I just need to make a game right now. And I really got into playing the old Resident Evil games, and I thought, I could make this. I'm sure I could make this. And we're now getting to the point where I feel like I'm setting more expectations on myself. You know, I haven't released a game at this point. I had worked on Winterbringers for so long. I had seen kind of what I could do. I had a lot of code that I could reuse. So I started embarking on this journey to make a game called Dread Surge, which is very serious and very dark and very creepy. And it was basically Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil, but 2D side-scroller, and you had to kill the zombies, get the keys, explore. And there wasn't a crazy in-depth game, but it was more like a vertical slice where I was making a small demo that I could maybe like show off to investors if I wanted to, or pitch to different people, or take to Kickstarter. I didn't do any of those things, but it was a nice wee challenge for myself. It was like kind of getting back in the groove of making games and releasing games for people to play again. A wee bit of time passed again, then I realised what I did with Dread Surge actually worked, because I seen a project through to the end, and it wasn't a game that you could go and sell for money and have people play for 10 plus hours. It was a 15 to 20 minute long demo, but I realised that worked because I was getting things done. I was releasing games and I was enjoying the process more because there was a finish line in sight. So I had just played Hollow Knight at this point, and this is now late 2021, and I thought, what about Hollow Knight but with fish? And it's maybe an idea that should have stayed as an idea, to be honest. It was good fun to make. I loved doing the artwork for all these characters, but I don't know, it just wasn't very fun. It didn't have that. There was just something missing from it. But I had a vision in my head of what I wanted to do with it going forward. And by the end, like, I was sick of the sight of this project because I started adding more stuff in because I realised there was something missing. I was adding more controls in, I was adding abilities in, I was adding additional levels and challenges. And I had aimed to develop it over about 3 months outside of work. It went on a wee bit longer, and I was sick of the sight of this game by the end. But looking back, I think it holds up quite well. When I know that I made it, I think it looks quite nice. But it's a game that it will stay as this demo, and I don't plan on going back to it anytime soon. So with Royal Fish Odyssey released, I fell out of love a little bit with game development again. That was until October 2022 when Vampire Survivors released, and it was like crack, by the way. Anybody that played it for the first time, I'm sure you felt that urge to just keep playing it over and over again. It was kind of like going to an arcade, and when I was playing it, I started to think, I could make this game. I could make something like this. I'm sure many of us thought that way, and that's why the market exploded with games that were basically clones of Vampire Survivors. This was going to be one of them. I put a shitload of hours into making this game, and I thought that by making Vampire Survivors but in space and with unlockable areas, kind of like Call of Duty Nazi Zombies, I suppose, in a way, I thought that would be enough of an appeal. I finished the demo for the game, and I was playing away, And every time I played it, all I could think was, I would rather be playing Vampire Survivors. Eventually, I just realised I just need to kind of make this game and take a break from it and see if I want to continue with development afterwards. So I did that. I released a demo of the game. It was a vertical slice again, just like Dread Surge and Royal Fish Odyssey before. After I took that break, I realised I'm not excited to go back and work on that project. So I knew that time was up for it. But again, I had a lot of fun enjoying working on this project. And this took me about 5 months of working part-time on it. And then this was another wee random game that I made. So it was basically like Snap, if you've ever played Snap, with a set of cards. And you would have to play Snap and pick out the cards that you wanted to beat the enemy. That was pretty much it. And it was kind of based off of Slay the Spire, because I had just played Slay the Spire at this point, and again, that game was like crack too. And then I started working on like a wee roguelike game as well. So it was a roguelike, but it had like rhythm-based attacks. So thinking of South Park Stick of Truth, where you had to, you would like get this thing that's on screen now, where you would need to hit it at the right point to do the attack, and if you didn't, you could miss or you could deal lower damage. And if you did hit it at the right point, you would get like a critical strike or something. And this is when I started realising I can't keep creating all my own artwork, otherwise it's going to take so long to get games out there, or they're just not going to come out at all. So that was when I started to get smart to that idea. And ever since that point, I've been going with asset packs and publicly available artwork until I get to the point where I feel like I need to make my own, or I need to replace certain parts. And then I started working on this little game, which was going to be like the Majesty series, and I'm still working on it a wee bit in the background. I've got this project, and then I'm working on another roguelike game, which I'm planning on releasing a wee bit more information on that soon. And that kind of gets us up to this stage where I've spent a lot of time telling other game developers stories, like the videos I've released lately about Sock Pop and about Loop Hero in particular. This all started because I got a request on a very old video back in January asking when I was going to do a tutorial on how to make Football Manager, and that's how I started posting videos on this channel again, and this has really rekindled my love for making games again. So I've got yourself to thank for that. I really appreciate you watching this video. That's been most of my 10-year journey, 10-ish year journey into game development so far, and I'm looking forward to the next 10 years.